It's been a crazy season for the Brooklyn Nets. They haven't tanked in the way that some people wanted, but maybe they built a culture in the way they wanted. What is going on with this season and what will happen as we sprint toward the finish? We'll get into that all, but first, the theme music.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to the Locked On Nets podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Doug Norrie, owner-operator DFSR. Need some FanDuel projections for FanDuel, DraftKings, whatever you want. We've got NBA rolling there, MLB starting up soon. Head on over to DFSR.com. That'll get you going. No Adam Armbrecht on the show today as we trade back and forth some solo episodes here with just the way that the schedule worked out for this week. It's all good. We can roll through plenty to talk about with where the Nets are in this season, a season that has had plenty of drama, although, it would be one of those things that we could probably couch it as, is the drama, warranted for where they are as a team? Because one of the things that's been, oft discussed over the course of this year with the Nets is, have they tanked hard enough, or have they built the culture enough that they wanted to, or have they done the right thing when it comes to winning? Have they done the wrong thing when it comes to winning, or the right thing where it comes to losing, or the wrong thing where it comes to losing? And that's the tricky spot the Nets have been put in all season long with this, is that, they went into this season after they traded Mikal Bridges in a trade that's looking better and better by the day, frankly, by how much they got back from the Knicks. And that sometimes it can't go any other way besides just not amazing for some of these teams that try to push all the chips. And I think, the season's not over, but we'll see how that ends up going with the Knicks when it's all said and done. But they make the trade for Mikal Bridges. They make the trade to send him over to the Knicks, get all those picks from New York, and in the process, make sure that Houston is part of the deal as well. And when they make that trade with Houston, it signals that the Nets are going to do sort of what is been made to have happen in the NBA these days, which is you're going to go in, you're going to lose all the games that you can in the next season, where Cooper Flagg is going to be in the draft, where Dylan Harper's going to be in the draft, where Ace Bailey's going to be in the draft. And it's really, really deep draft, as we already know, but there's a clear prize at the very top. And you get these picks back from Houston, you claw those back from the James Harden trade, and you head into the season with a win total that hovers, a projected win total that hovers somewhere in the 17.5 to 18.5 range, making them at the time with Washington the odds-on favorites to have the fewest wins, the most losses in the league. And it seems pretty clear on paper for what the Nets should do. And I put should in quotes because this is what the trickiest spot that we're going to talk a little bit about in this episode. And to some degree, we've been talking about all season long, which is, when the lottery odds benefit you, or, you gain benefit from having the most losses, so that you can have the best odds, even those ones that have been smoothed out. And then in the process, you get back these picks that had been really problematic going out to Houston last year. They get Reed Shepherd from that. And it looks like that Houston is going to kind of control the draft for the Nets, who are stuck in this weird middle ground where they're not anywhere close to being good enough, and they're not maybe close to being, it doesn't help them at all to be bad. And now all of a sudden the Nets are stuck in the middle. We watched this play out in sort of minorly horrific fashion last season, where, Bridges struggles and they can't really get anything on offense, and the coaching was a problem. And it just was you never knew if they were coming or going all season. And it kind of didn't matter because they didn't have their pick anyway. And now they get the picks back. And we watch, it's not that deep of a draft class. They, like I said, with Reed Shepherd, it's not ground shaking to lose that. Although when the Houston grabs that third pick, Nets fans correctly kind of throw their hands up and roll their eyes and say, here we go again. Of course, the Nets get the bounce of the lottery balls in their way, and then it doesn't help them at all. And if you have PTSD left over from the Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce thing, then you're for sure, which most Nets fans do correctly, and you watch the Celtics get Jason Tatum and you get Jaylen Brown. And then all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, here we go again. But then, they go ahead and John Marks makes the deal, somehow gets those picks back from Houston, which was always a little bit weird because it didn't seem like Houston had a ton of reasons to do it, except that they looked at the landscape and said, well, if the Nets aren't going to be incentivized to lose, let's go. And unless they get these picks back, let's go grab these Phoenix picks, because this thing is going to be a disaster in a little while. And maybe that's how we're going to claw Kevin Durant away from there in the offseason. Or if not, we still have these incredibly valuable Suns picks, because it looks like that team is just headed maybe for some big time trouble. So long story short, as the Nets do this, we all kind of see what's happening. We see the win total. We know how the lottery odds work. We know it's Cooper Flag. We know all this stuff's going to happen, or you think it's going to happen. And then here they are, plenty of the way into the season right now, 69 games into the season now. And they're sitting there with 23-46. And you say to yourself, well, that's a horrible record. And it's right. It's a 333 win percentage. 23-46 is not a good record at all. And yet, to the folks that, and like us, that kind of want as good a lottery odds as you can possibly get in a draft where you clearly want to be at the top. It's not going to be the worst thing in the world to be in the middle, but there's clear prizes here at the top, specifically with Cooper Flag. And you think, well, 23 wins is maybe quote unquote too many. And then you get the other side of the coin, which is kind of what happened and how the Nets have sort of played out this string, which is, well, is there a tangible benefit to not just being one of these teams that packs it in, throws out these total abomination of lineups on a night-to-night basis, sits their guys, gets fined, does all these different things that sort of just play with the rules so that you can manufacture losses in the most brazenly aggressive way possible. And we've talked about this. Look, you see what Toronto's doing late in games, sitting guys. Utah's already been fined $100,000 because they just weren't playing nice with the injury reports around guys who can play. Their best players sit every other night or more. I mean, at most, they play every other game, and mostly they're just not playing at all. Lauri Markkanen, Walker Kessler, John Collins, these guys have been in and out of the lineup. And you say to yourself, well, what's like sort of the universal benefit to not having this sort of like lose on purpose, quietly forfeit, the quietly quit, whatever you want to call it, version of these NBA teams? And I guess what we've heard many times is, if one thing is tanking, then the flip side is culture. Right? We joke around culture sometimes about how, okay, well, cultures are sort of this buzzword for wins over expectation or losses under expectation, right? Like if you have wins, if you're winning more than people expected you to, you have great culture. And if you have losses under, what you're expected, and then it's not injury related per se, then you have bad culture. And it becomes this buzzword for, exceeding expectations, or having a good system in place, or having a good coach in place, or having a front office that cares, or whatever falls under the umbrella of culture. And I think these are what have become competing storylines for the Nets this year is, we can kind of tell what the value of a loss is. A value of a loss is X percentage higher chance of getting a better draft pick. But are we able to fully calculate what the value of a win is? And I think that has been the hard sort of circle to square over the course of the season is there a tangible benefit to these wins that the Nets are getting that aren't reflected in the way that the lottery odds kind of go? And is it because it's more reflected on an organizational level? Want to get into more of this in a second, because this has been one of the main probably sticking points for Nets fans over the course of the year, is the difference of opinions about where these two things are concerned. We'll get into more of that here in just 1 second. Before we get to that, let you know with Robinhood Gold, you can now enjoy the VIP treatment, receiving a 3% IRA match on retirement contributions. The privileges of the very privileged are no longer exclusive. With Robinhood Gold, your annual IRA contributions are boosted by 3%. Plus, you also get 4% APY on your cash and non-retirement accounts. That's over 8x the national savings average. The perks of the high net worth are now available for any net worth. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. To receive your 3% boost on annual IRA contributions, sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rates subject to change. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold at $5 a month for 1 year from first match. Must keep funds in IRA for 5 years. Go to Robinhood.com/boost. Over 8x the national average savings accounts. Interest rates claim is based on data from the FDIC as of November 18, 2024. Robinhood Financial LLC, member SIPC. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. And when you're done with that, head on over to our friends at Gametime. There's nothing like watching basketball live, energy of the crowd, sound of the sneakers on the hardwood, maybe even a celebrity sighting courtside. I want to catch a game in person. Gametime makes getting tickets easier than ever. They got Gametime's feature, the Gametime Picks. It filters out the fluff, shows you only the best deals on great seats. You're not going to waste time scrolling through thousands of tickets. You head over to Gametime right now. They got Brooklyn Nets stuff. I'm going to warn you here. These things they're pretty cheap here. They've got to get over to Gametime. Mavericks and Nets starting at $18. That's on Monday the 24th. You got Raptors at Nets starting at $11. Couple little tank off there, although the Nets really haven't been going that direction. And a little steeper. Clippers coming in at Nets. Old friend James Harden starting at $32. Just some of what you're going to get over on Gametime. It's easy ticket shop, and they got the super deals. They're going to highlight each time. Peace of mind, too. You can view those seats before you sit down. No surprise fees. Lowest price guaranteed. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app. Create an account and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right. So like I said, this culture versus draft odds piece has been a talking point all season. And there's a group of fans out there. And I think there's plenty of legitimacy to this. And a group of fans / the team. I think so. It's not just like there's this sect of fans that are sitting out there speaking this on their own. The team has signaled over the course of the year that losses don't seem to be as important as whatever wins gain. Right. So what I said before the break, that I wasn't exactly sure how to quantify what it means to not lose in the Nets situation. Again, we know what it means to lose. Every time they lose, those odds get better. You can cap it out, right? You can't get past a certain point with the odds, and the odds are smooth in such a fashion that it's not going to. It's not like before where it's an outsized gains, or it's not like the NFL where it's you live and with the best record and just guaranteed the first pick. So clearly that's not what's happening in the NBA. They've tried to protect a little bit against this over the course of a season by making it not as amazing to be the worst in the league, but clearly that hasn't worked all the way or enough, because plenty of teams still feel plenty of incentive to lose, again, aggressively on a night-to-night basis with absolute total embarrassments of lineups. And the Nets have mostly avoided that. Now, they have rested guys at times, but they have not rested guys at anywhere close to the clip of some of these other teams, and specifically late game, where you see teams like the Raptors who just say no thanks to their best players coming in and playing the fourth quarter, sending the very clear signal to everyone involved, hey, we do not want to win this one. The Nets have not done that, and they've fought very hard. I think that we've seen over the course of the season that the effort levels of this team, even in the losses, are very high. Like this, they stick with Boston. They beat Atlanta the other night. They stay in these, hang with Cleveland. They stay in these games where they are clearly out-talented, right? And just on an NBA talent level, even when they're fully healthy now, they just don't have the requisite talent of some of these other squads that they are sticking with, because players have bought into Jordi Fernandez's systems. They seem all on the same page with what they're running. They're personnel independent in some of the schemes that they're running, so they can just kind of get out there and run what they want to run in terms of motion offense and setting screens and getting people moving and getting guys downhill as much as they can. And that's kept them in a lot of games, and they've dialed it up as much as you possibly can defensively based on the personnel to stay in some of these games. And so, yeah, they're not winning all of them, and they still have a very bad record, but I think most would agree, they just have exceeded expectations. We know that because they're already 5 or 6 games up on where they were in terms of their overall win expectancy before the season started. So they've already well exceeded what the expectation was on that level. And those win totals over the long term tend to be correct, right? Not on a team-to-team basis, but in the aggregate, the odds makers are very, very good at this. And so what they've said is, okay, well, we know what it means to lose, but what does it mean to win? And this is the interesting thing that we haven't seen as much in the NBA in recent seasons. It's been so much about the tanking, and it's been so much about teams just being bad. And by the way, having it be accepted to be this way. Like, no one really jumps that ugly at any of these teams for doing it, right? Like, everyone kind of, like when Utah throws out these terrible lineups, everyone kind of nods their head and says, yeah, I get it. Or when Toronto sits their guys, no one likes it, but everyone understands it. Right? Like, everyone nods their head and says, okay, well, I get it. I don't like the idea that this happens, but under the current form of the NBA and how it works, I do kind of understand it. We haven't seen too many teams do what the Nets are doing now, which is to say, yeah, we might lose these games, but man, we're going to try to win. We're going to try to win these games. The players clearly want to. Jordi Fernandez clearly wants to. They play their best guys in crunch time. They're not sitting anybody out. They're mostly not, going all the way into the bench on a night-to-night basis. These guys have played a lot of games. Cam Johnson's played a lot of games. The times where guys have sat, it's mostly been legitimate injuries. And that sends the signal that we are going to try. So they clearly have said to themselves, something counts here. The draft odds are going to be what they are. The lottery odds are going to be the ping pong balls, such as they are going to fall where they fall. But these wins do matter for something. They matter for the team. They matter for the players. They clearly matter for the coach. They matter for the front office. They matter in the signal that they send as an organization of what they want to do. And no, they're not going with the accepted version of what teams are doing this late in the season or some much earlier in the season, this accepted version of, let's just take some losses and that's going to be what it is. And again, most people would have been okay with that. I think under the current circumstances, it doesn't feel amazing, but I think everyone would have again nodded their head and said, sure, this is what happens. And so I know people laugh because they're like, well, they haven't had a good season. They only have 23 wins, and that's correct. But I think the expectation was that the Nets were going to sit more in this Hornets and Wizards range of 15 wins for the Wizards, 17 wins for the Hornets. And then in the Eastern Conference is 15 wins for the Jazz, who've been terrible. The Pelicans, who are, terrible too, 18 wins. And the Nets are sitting so far, quote, so far above those teams now that they won't drop into that bottom four where the odds do take a material shift, not an overwhelming shift, but a material shift. And so when the Nets sit outside this range, probably because they have not signed on to this other version of the tank that these other teams have, then you do know that they value this stuff on an organizational level, and they clearly think that this is either A, going to send the right signals. It has to be that, because like no one's, people joke around, it's like, oh, the basketball gods are going to reward them. I mean, that's clearly not a thing, right? So like, I know it's fun to say, and like, oh, they'll be rewarded in the end because of karma. Karma police will come for everyone else, and the Nets will get it. I mean, that's not how that works, right? So it's not that. It's got to be something else besides sort of like a good guy award, right? That's not how the lottery odds work. But they've said it's just, look, we want to be the kind of organization that doesn't get mired in fan expectation or organizational expectation year over year of this kind of thing being okay. And if the rules are the rules and other teams are going to lean into it, they have to. Now, some of those other teams have other sort of disadvantages that the Nets don't have. They have geographical disadvantages like Utah, where it's going to be harder to attract free agents. Like Charlotte, it's going to be harder to attract free agents. Washington, well, I'm not sure. They're clearly not a New York City, but they're not a Charlotte or a Utah, right? So it's somewhere in between. But these other teams that are probably always going to struggle on a free agent aspect to be able to bring players in, or just on a trade like destination when someone says they want to be out, they're going to more likely to probably want to go to places like New York City than Charlotte. No shade to Charlotte here. I don't think that's a hot take. So those other teams are playing. It's not exactly an even deck here. The Nets have a geographical advantage that these other teams simply don't have. So those teams have to lean all the way into it. And Nets might say to themselves, look, well, we understand where we have advantages the other teams don't. We don't have to play this game all the way out. Players will want to come here. We'll just let things fall as they may. And we can be an organization that holds its head high at the end of the day. And I think they clearly made that calculation for themselves, much to the chagrin of many fans. I get tongue in cheek about it over on Twitter. And I do think that it would have helped them to go for the losses. I don't sit and stew about it every single game and get really mad at them for, trying to win games, because I think that's sort of also a silly feeling. But the Nets have said they for lack of a better word, they've placed culture at a higher priority than whatever incremental draft odd increase that they can get from a loss. So I don't know if it's an actual calculus they've done or an algebra they've done or whatever math formula would insert itself here, but that's obviously what they're doing. So I want to finish off some more of these thoughts around sort of where the Nets sit here as they head toward the regular season and what to expect. Will they try to get into that bottom four? It's remains to be seen. Even it's going to be tough. We'll get into the rest of this here in just one moment. Before we get to that, tell you, my friends, over at Upwork, scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and so much more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, marketing. Hey, you need some extra hands for a project or a long-term partner. Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. I'd like to hear that. Finding the right talent. If you need help with marketing campaign, Upwork connects you with a freelance expert. You deliver incredible results. You need that fast and easy hiring, cost-effective growth. They got those affordable top-tier freelancers help you scale any business efficiently. Visit Upwork.com right now. Post your job for free. That's Upwork, UPWORK.com Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, so the Nets have the rest of the season to play out here. They have a strength of schedule remaining. They have 13 games remaining. Is that right? 13 games remaining? Yeah. Nets have, 13 games, remaining. And according to their strength of schedule, they have the eighth easiest schedule remaining for the rest of the year. Excuse me, seventh. I've messed all these numbers up. So 13 games remaining, seventh easiest schedule left to go. Easiest in the way that like Nets fans might not want to see. So they have the Knicks, they have Minnesota twice, they have Pacers twice, and then they have a bunch of these other teams that are definitely going to not want to get W's here. They have Washington, although maybe they just feel Washington might feel like their fate is sealed, and they have actually played a little harder lately. Pelicans, they're already down there. Raptors, Nets are duking it out with the Raptors here in the loss column. They have 2 games of them left. Mavs, total mess. They're like butting up very close to like forfeiting games because they just can't even get the requisite amount of players. Is what a travesty that's happened there. And then they have the Hawks. So it's not exactly a murderer's row of just tough people on the schedule. So there are going to be games where the Nets probably end up pulling off some wins here, maybe, right? If you look but at the same time, we already know Cam Johnson's out on Thursday. And so we'll see about who else ends up playing. He's already been ruled out. Everyone else, I think, is planning on playing. Cam Johnson's been one of the guys that Nets fans that want the losses have said, why is this guy playing all these minutes? I kind of talked about that before about, what the Nets might have felt that they wanted to do, especially wanted to clearly keep Cam Johnson happy. Happy. Well, healthy and happy. Where, they see him as a veteran leader, which they should. He's a great leader. And he's kind of the exact guy that you want around your team. And we've talked about the advantage to having a guy like that over the long term on the team. So they've wanted to, hey, look, these guys want to play. Like if you're an NBA player, you want to play. Like that's why you got into the league. That's what you work hard to do. You don't want to sit. And that's why I sympathize with these players who are going to go out there and give it their best every single game. Cam Johnson is definitely one of those dudes and has been very vocal over the course of the season about saying, like, look, we're not going to go out there and lose on purpose. And no one's asked anybody to lose on purpose. Well, okay, I take that back. There's a group out here that's asked people to lose on purpose, but really not asked the players to lose on purpose. They more on an organizational level want certain guys to sit more often than they do or play worse players down the stretch or things like that. Again, sending a very clear signal of what you want to happen without overtly just saying you want to lose. Again, tricky spot for these teams to sort of get in. But Cam Johnson's been vocal and saying, not going to do that. And he's had an excellent season. They didn't trade him, obviously, at the trade deadline. But maybe this is going to signal that there's going to be some more strategic rest down the pike of the last few games. We'll see how that goes. Again, they haven't done tons of this, but really late season, this has been universally accepted across the board for teams to do that. So we will see kind of what happens with them, but he's going to rest. But if you look at the schedule, it's not exactly like this really, really tough schedule. They got through some of the harder games, and now there's going to be some games that they're just going to have to make some real decisions about where they want to land. Like Toronto's the big one, because where they sit right now, Toronto, it's a kind of a grouping of Brooklyn, Philly, and Toronto. They're all sitting around this 5, 6, 7, and it's very close. Like every loss counts if you're wanting to stick into that 5th range. And those are games that are very high leverage. And you look back to that game that Claxton hit the buzzer beater against Philly. That one becomes kind of like a pretty important win when you're looking at the draft odds, right? Losing some of these games to a Toronto team that clearly has no interest in getting any wins as much as they can without being, just putting a flashing sign up in the stadium that says, please beat us, please beat us. That's going to be a game where it will be funny and interesting to kind of see what happens. I think the Nets are going to stay the course for the most part with what they've done this year. I think they're going to put mostly their best foot forward and just send this signal that says, this is just not what we're interested in doing. Some of these other teams are interested in doing it, and it's just not us. I think it's going to probably infuriate some fans. Some fans are going to love it. We'll see. Sometimes you don't ever know how we should feel. Well, I already know how to feel already about it because I just kind of go by the odds, and the ping pong balls end up where they are. But you really want to try to play the odds as much as possible with these things. But I get it. Look, I get why you wouldn't want to go all the way there. I get why culture is important. I get why sending these other signals is important. I understand what that the wins might mean something, that you want to kind of carry yourself in a certain way as a professional organization, that you don't get infinity games to kind of prove yourself, that sometimes you just have short windows to be able to play your best and look your best and do your best. And if that's the case, then the Nets, I've said that these losses just aren't worth it. They just aren't worth the thing. They aren't worth moving up or down in the lottery standings, such as they are. I guess I respect it. It feels incorrect, but only in the scope of the way that the rules are sort of outlined for the NBA, right? The NBA has incentivized this thing. I wish the rules were different. I wish there was another way to go about it. There isn't. And so when that's the case, you kind of just have to do business with the way the rules are. It makes for an interesting talking point to think about what the gains are to be had by winning. But it's hard to make a strong case for it when you see guys like Cooper Flag, and if it's a difference of a 5 to 6% difference or more in chances to get these guys, it's worth a lot, man. Like, these guys are just generational talents, and if you have ways to give yourself better odds to do it, you're sort of, organizationally obligated to. But again, there's clearly a formula here that I maybe am not factoring in the same exact way. All right, we're going to get out of here. I say we. I'm so used to saying it. I'm going to get out of here. No Adam Armbrecht on the show today. That's okay. We'll be back together again on Friday. Do some Fan Take Friday stuff. Talk about this game against the Pacers. Also, kind of break it all down from that aspect. And hopefully we won't fight too much as fans over the course of these last 13 games. Let's all stick together here. We're all Nets fans. Make sure you subscribe to Locked On Nets wherever you listen to the podcast. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. Always get to this part with no Adam and say to myself, why did I not get a quote from one of the all-time great poets? It's where we just call Adam Armbrecht one of the all-time great poets. We're back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.